Let me bring Andre on the air. Andre, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, thanks for joining us. So I want to, for people that aren't familiar with what happened, to go through that first, just not in too much detail, but to kind of give a summary of what had happened. And when was this? Was it September or October? Or I don't remember. I know it wasn't that long ago, but
Yeah, it was October
it was
1st.
October. Okay. And you had come on the show like a week or so after that. So, yeah, just give a summary of what had happened with the police there in Sandusky, Ohio.
Well, we have a lot of issues all across the country, man, dealing with the state of the police. So, for a moment, I would like to erase the idea of me being a black man and him being a white cop. Main reason why I want to do that because I got some white partners that they do this too. So, we were pulled over, and the guy actually already knew who I was, but wanted to investigate. So he says in the video.
Just to interrupt. You were talking to him, as if I recall correctly. You were having a conversation with him like 5 minutes or 10 minutes prior to that, before you had got in the car, and yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the whole reason why when he asked me what my name was, you know what I'm saying, I told him I'm not answering none of his questions. Because for one, I had the right to not answer none of his questions. Because for what he was trying to do was trying to incriminate me because he already had a story made up talking about he thought I was somebody else. But the last time I was arrested, he was the arresting officer. He knew exactly who I was. You know, I don't live in a large city. I live in a small town. It's only about same size as Ferguson, actually, 27,000 people here. You know, same demographic makeup. You know, so it's a system. You know, I want people to understand, man. We dealing with a systematic oppression. I really wholeheartedly believe that for the simple fact of you can only oppress a certain race of people for so long till it becomes not beneficial to everyone. So now what it is everybody is subject to the government's control of everything that they do. It's not just black people anymore, man. It's everybody. And I think the sooner everybody realizes the police state is to generate income. It's called the new Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading that book right now. It's to generate income by any means necessary. You know what I mean? I love this nonpartisan liberty for all thing because it makes so much sense because I think the institution of police makes absolutely no sense if the people understand what human nature is all about. I think it's crazy the numbers of the people we got in prison in the United States of America. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's and we'll get into to some of those details, but yeah, there's something like 25% of the world's population is in the U.S. It is crazy, and there is a jail culture, which is something I talk about a lot. But just for everybody to understand what had happened, that when you talk about not telling him who you are, and I had seen some interviews with you by other people, and I had thought that you were being like too, not nice, but that, you know, you have the right to not have to show your ID.
Right.
So, I mean, to even need an explanation, well, why didn't you do it? Well, because I don't have to. There's all these things that people will say, well, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And how far are you going to go? It's standing up and saying, look, man, you don't have the right to just fucking pull me over and harass me and ask me who I am. So you didn't have any obligation to comply. Now, I think with a lot of things, you don't have an obligation to comply, but what they'll do is they use the threat of force. So, most people will comply because they don't want to get killed or they don't want to get put in jail. But
it's fully tactic. Yeah.
But I said, well, that's exactly what the government is based on. It's all based on the threat of violence and threat of force. But so when they had pulled you over, from what I recall, that they even fucked up what had happened, where first they said it was about not having the lights on, but then somebody else, and the other officer said it was about her plates or something.
Yep. And then I fit the description of somebody with warrants, and then the baby's going to jail. And oh man, it was so. See, what my video did, it made people realize how much of a script that the police use to to do whatever it is they want to do. And if you watch the police misconduct that happens, it seems like 90% of the time it's patrol officers. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's though because that's all you see, because the patrol officers are what they're catching on video.
No, that's not because it's all you see. That's because they're poorly trained. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? It goes back to the system.
Well, I don't disagree that they're poorly trained, but to me, it doesn't matter how you train them. It's about the power. And I do think the other, detectives and stuff like that, they harass people, but the people that they're harassing is they're more investigating crimes and doing it that way. So you're not going to see what goes on in like an interrogation room or something like that. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying, bro. I've been in an interrogation room and I've dealt with detectives versus dealing with the patrol officers. The detectives are well trained, period. You can't be a detective if you're not well trained. You know what I'm saying? You don't come into the police department and become a detective. You always start as a patrol officer. All of them do. You know what I'm saying?
They do, but I disagree that the detectives are okay and the patrol people are, the ones that are out of control. As far as I'm concerned, again, it may be the way they go about it is different because, there is different training and their jobs are different. But I'm not going to say that, well, detectives are, that they don't violate people's rights the same way, because they do.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. That is so not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is one is better trained than the other, and that's why it doesn't happen as much.
Well, they're better trained to get away with it, too.
Well, no, they're just better trained to do their jobs. So you got to understand, bro, the whole point that I'm trying to make now is so much of, all right, we understand that the police are the police. They have a job to do. Whether they got a
but I just disagree with that premise in general, but I know what you're saying.
You got to let me finish my point first. Let me finish my point. They have a job to do. As a person in the community that the police stay in, you feel what I'm saying? I live where the police always be at because there's a reason that they're always there. You dig what I'm saying? So my responsibility as a person who lives in those type of neighborhoods is making sure those neighborhoods keep the crime out of it to lessen the police presence. That's the whole point, bro. We can sit here and say that the police are doing whatever, but if we're giving them a reason to do it, then that destroys the whole purpose. So I can't sit here and be mad at the police for doing the same thing that I'm doing to my own people.
Yeah, I disagree with that based on. Well, go ahead. I'll let you finish your point.
To eliminate the problem, you must go at the root, and the root is we as a community are committing way too many crimes and letting it go. Versus now we're allowing the police to give us our moral balance inside of the community. Bro, I'm from the ghetto. You feel what I'm saying? I'm not a person who observed it. I'm a person who lived it. The problem is we need, as a people, we need to start taking care of ourselves. Like, if you really understand the Black Panther Party, what they really did, the whole premise for the Black Panther Party was a political movement, and the fact that they took care of the neighborhoods. They kept the drug dealers and the pimps and the prostitutes out of the neighborhoods, and plus they were also anti-government, which means that they don't need the help from the police. They implemented free lunch programs and things like that in the Black neighborhoods. That's what the Black Panthers were about. So what you have to understand is we got to start taking care of each other more so therefore we don't have to have the help from the government.
Okay, so
self-sufficient.
Let me respond to
the problem.
Let me respond to that. First of all, regarding the Black Panthers, I had read the autobiography of Bobby Seale, Huey Newton in high school. Actually, believe it or not, it was in the library. But regarding that point, many of these so-called crimes should not be crimes. So to look at it that, the police are just doing their job, no, they're not. They are in the sense that their job is to teach people to obey, to fill the prisons, to generate what they call revenue. Well, let me finish my point, and then you can respond to that. But their job, and this is what they do. Now, you can disagree and say it's not their job, but this is what they do. And what they do is they teach people to obey. They want people to, and this is why anybody who challenges them, they go after. And we'll talk a little about that as well, because they want people to obey.
They're going after me.
Yeah, well, I know. That's what I'm saying. We'll talk about that as well. And this whole idea that it's, well, I understand what you're saying. Now, if it comes to something like where you're hurting somebody else, so if the crimes are people are getting killed and people are getting robbed and assaulted and stuff like that, to me, that's definitely a crime. But the fact that to blame the people for the reason why the police are there, and at the same time saying, as far as I'm concerned, all drugs should be legal. So the fact that the government says, well, we're going to tell you what you can put in your own body. And what people don't understand is self-ownership. First of all, you own yourself, you being anybody. And based on that, if you want to fuck up your life, that's your prerogative. Now, I don't think it's a good thing, especially with certain drugs, but there's certain drugs that people can smoke weed and they're fine. But the mentality of the government is, we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you what you can put in your body, and then we're going to put you in jail for it. So the biggest reason why cops are in any community is drugs. It's the number one reason. And
all right, then. So hold on a second. Hold on.
Well, wait. I'm not finished. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Listen for a second. Listen, bro. I'm an ex-drug dealer. Trust me, I know this, man. So therefore, if you get rid of the drugs that's in the community, then what?
Why do you need to get rid of something that is illegal? Why, so you're
communities. I know what I'm talking about, man.
Well, you assume that, like, I don't know what I'm talking about based on what? I mean,
what I'm saying is this here, bro. What I'm saying is, you speaking on the problem, I'm speaking on the solution.
I'm speaking on my solution is, one, you could legalize drugs for one. Then you take all of the people that are in jail for drugs, gone. You take the violence out of drugs. So flooding a community with drugs because they're illegal is what's attracting that in the first place. So if you legalize drugs, first of all, I think you should get rid of all police. And that's one of the goals. But hold on. But hold on. Now,
bro, that makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense, because listen to this. Even if you legalize drugs, that doesn't get rid of the crimes people commit to go get the drugs.
Why do people commit crimes over drugs? Because they can't afford them. Hold on. Because they can't afford them, number one. Because they so how come there's not problems over legalize things that are bad for you?
You can legalize all the drugs you want. People are still
was actually decriminalized. Why would you rob for something that you could afford? Why are you going to kill? How many people kill people over, something that you get at the pharmacy? Now, I know some of them are controlled, but ones that aren't controlled. How many people kill people over Tylenol? Nobody. How many people kill people over cigarettes or alcohol? Maybe a little. Very few. Alcohol is more dangerous than almost every drug out there. So the mentality that, well, all the crime's still going to be there. No. So you're basically taking what the system has created and saying, and thinking inside of that box that, well, it's going to be the same way if they're legal. And no, it's not. Because if drugs are, if you can get them and you don't have to rob people to afford them. Hold on, because we're talking over each other here. So hold on. Go ahead.
You completely missing the point. What I'm saying is this here. If you eliminate the drugs in the communities where they are being sold at, because I don't care what you say. I've been in them streets. I know what time it is. Percocet, Oxycontin.
Right.
Those
it's controlled. No, it is not legal. Hold on. It is not legal. It's controlled. So you can't look at it like you can buy it in the store. And the drugs there, if something is controlled, it might as well be the same as a drug that is illegal. Because if you're looking at something that you have to buy it on the street because you can't get it, there's no difference there. That's the whole point. So if something's totally legal, then you can compare it.
Listen, no matter how you put it, it's legal to go purchase narcotics.
It is not legal unless you get permission from the government. So, if you want to talk about, go totally off topic here, We can do that, but if I thought the purpose was that you wanted to talk about what you were doing. Now, I totally disagree with your premise. That's fine. I mean, you can say what you think, and I'm still going to disagree with it. And just because you want to say that, well, I grew up in the streets, so I know everything or about it, and assume that other people don't know anything, that's fine as well. But you're basing your premise on how things exist today.
I'm basing my premise off experience. That's what I'm basing my premise off, experience.
You dealt with something how they are, so you know how something's going to be if you totally change it. Okay.
Listen, you cannot compete with experience, bro. A person who has lived it, you can never psychoanalyze a person that's lived it. So let's get that. Let me get my point across first before you destroy what I say. You may not agree with it, but my points are always valid, bro.
Everybody's points are valid because everybody's opinion is valid. But to say that you have more knowledge because of how things would be if you changed the laws, and to say because, well, I sold drugs. And yeah, I sold drugs too. So what? So that doesn't mean that I know how laws are going to be. And I don't. This is my opinion. But if you look at all of these studies, all of these statistics, and compare them to reality, if you legalized drugs, there would be no or minimal crime. And alcohol is a perfect example. Now, again, you're entitled to your opinion. If you like to express that, that's fine. But to almost basically say, well, my opinion is not valid because you know this or you know that. No, your opinion is no more valid than mine. And mine's no more valid than yours. It's an opinion. It's based off of facts. But that doesn't mean that your opinion is any more valid.
You know the game better. A coach who played or a coach who just coached, man?
What does that have to do with the law? If you want to say that, well, I'm a drug dealer, so I know about the law and what would happen if you changed the law. Nothing.
Can I just speak just for a second and let me speak and get my point across just one time, man? That's all I ask. Now listen to me for a second. No matter what you say, I don't care if the drug's controlled by the government. I don't care how the drug gets here. All I'm saying is this. Even if you legalize drugs, people are going to still continue to break crimes to get high because they're still poor. Period, bro. That's all I'm saying. You taking it to another level. I'm trying to eliminate the problem. The problem is the fact that drugs take you out of your natural state of mind. Flat out.
Let's leave it at, we have a different perspective, and your perspective is not in line with what I believe and what I promote on the show, but that's fine.
I'm speaking from my experiences in life, bro.
Again, you can speak from whatever you want to speak, but I disagree with your premise and your opinion. Now, obviously, if you have no money, you can't afford anything. But right now, it's the same thing, except drugs are more expensive.
Listen, bro, I'm telling you from experience, and I just want to get my point across.
No, go ahead.
Okay, just let me speak my mind.
No, you're entitled to your opinion. Go ahead.
I have been a part of the destruction of this country by being out here doing what I was doing in these streets, all right? I started off selling weed. The weed game is the weed game. It's a beautiful game. Weed guy's the coolest guy in the world. Then I started selling a little bit of ecstasy. Party drug, everybody partying. Cool drug. Then I started selling cocaine. That's a whole nother realm of different people. Then I started dabbling in prescription drugs, which is an opiate, which led to heroin. Do you understand the psyche and the mind state of a person who does heroin, that every single time you might get high, you might die? That's what made me want to stop, because I was feeling responsible for the destruction in my neighborhood. So if you legalize all drugs, it doesn't get rid of the problem. The problem are drugs themselves. So if you get rid of drugs, period, where people aren't dependent upon anything but happiness, will eliminate all these
problems.
Right,
so how do you get rid of drugs, period? By using force, right? You're going to throw everybody in jail and use force against them? Like the government does?
Listen, bro, you can't get rid of it.
So what is your...
The danger of it. That's the thing, bro.
Right. So if you can't get rid of them and people are going to do them no matter what, wouldn't you want it to be in a safer environment where it's cheaper, where it's more affordable, where people aren't gangbanging over it and killing people over it for the most part? They may still rob to an extent. How many people rob over alcohol? Maybe some, but not a lot.
You mean to tell me that a person who him and his homies got a corner and they selling dope off that corner, just because drugs are legal, that these dudes still ain't gonna be killing each other over territory?
Why would you? They can't make any money off it. What? See,
it's still gonna be there.
Yeah, I know you have all this experience with that, but do you understand economics as well? Or
weed is legal in certain states, but you think they ain't selling weed on the street still too? It's still a problem.
Only if you can make money off it.
Still gonna, come on, man. Dog, you really ain't listening to me.
I'm listening to you, man. I've heard your argument over and over again from people that support keeping drugs legal, like the government, like all of the law enforcement. I've heard the exact same argument over and over and over again.
Legalize the drugs.
So, I mean, I really don't want to sit here and debate whether drugs should be legal or not. That really wasn't the goal. I can do it. It's just, it's not really the goal of my show is not really to have arguments with people about stuff. That's not, my goal is to promote freedom. Now, keeping drugs illegal does not promote freedom, in my opinion, of course. And that, I mean, we can talk about it, but it's not something that I would plan to do because, again, there's plenty of shows where people can argue their points back and forth, and it just turns into an argument where the same things are said over and over again. And it's entertaining the people. They're like, yeah, people arguing, but it's not something that I focus on or even like to do. So I don't know if you want to talk about the stuff that you're doing, which, again, I mean, if these are the things that you're promoting, it's not really something I want to promote. I think it's good that you're doing something positive, and I'm glad that, you're doing, you feel better about yourself and you're not doing the things that you did before. So I'm happy for you in that aspect, but it's not really something I want to promote because I'm totally on the opposite side of all of these things. And I think it's counteractive and contradictive to freedom. And it's all about using force and, using violence to stop people. It's the same part of the whole thing with the police. That gives the police all of this, all of these ways to violate people's rights. If you look at how many people have died or had their rights violated or their lives ruined by the police and the system, and how the police are just like, even with you, where you were pulled over, what's the first thing they use? What do they use? Drugs, because drugs are legal. We use drugs. We pull you over. Hey,
no, they didn't use drugs. What you mean?
Why did they search you? They said, oh, a dog had drugs, right? That's what they used to search you. What I mean is the premise that they had used, and they do this over and over again, is drugs. If it's not for drugs, I mean, I guess they could say they want to search for guns or bombs or something, which I'm sure they'll do that with the whole terrorism thing. But what I'm saying is giving drugs, I mean, there's so many things you could go through. I understand your point that, drugs are not good for people. Certain drugs are worse than others, and some people may destroy their lives on it, although it's a lot smaller percentage than, people would like to promote that it is. But
hey, listen, bro, can I speak? You just spoke for 3 minutes.
Well, it is my show. I didn't know you're timing it.
I understand that, but if you're gonna interview me, bro.
I'm not here to interview you. I thought you were gonna talk about you wanted to come on to promote what you were doing. You had asked me to come on.
Okay, all right. Can I speak, please?
Go ahead.
You've been talking for like 4 straight minutes, bro. No breath.
Well, I didn't plan on having an argument about drugs. I thought you were going to come on and promote what you were doing. You had asked me to come on and promote it, so I was like, fine. I think you're doing something positive, so that's good. So go ahead.
Damn, let me say something. Damn, bro. Listen, man, what I'm trying to do is promote positivity, man. All this anti-government, I completely understand, but the way you become anti-government is to be self-sufficient upon the people, and the people don't need the progress and programs. You understand? That's how you stop it. So no,
that's true. I agree with you on that.
So you stop the sale of illegal narcotics or narcotics, period, in the neighborhoods, altering the people's state of mind. Because once you alter your state of mind, you don't think like this.
But how do you stop it, though? I'll let you go. But during your answer, just answer how you're going to stop it, because I want to hear that.
Trying to tell you how you do that, man, is you promote positivity, man. The only way you can get people off of drugs is to make them understand that they don't need drugs. But that's an individual aspect of life. You have to.
Then I apologize because that. Wait. I want to say I apologize because I agree with you on that you do it by promoting your ideas. All right, go. I'm gonna let you talk. Hold on. I'll let you go. Go ahead,
bro. Let me speak, man. So what I'm doing is I'm going to these different colleges. I'm going to these different youth facilities where these kids have the effect of being future leaders. And I'm telling them the best thing that they do for themselves is being transparent in their neighborhoods and showing these kids exactly what success should look like. From a black man standpoint who grew up in the ghetto, I understand that's the best thing for the neighborhoods that these police are doing these things at.
is becoming self-sufficient upon the neighborhood. When I was growing up, it was hardly as bad as it is now, bro, because we still had a sense of community. I lived there. I know what I'm talking about. So when you say these statistics you keep bringing up, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't match up with the real fact of what's really going on in these neighborhoods. And I've been a part of it, and I've been a problem to it. And now I've got a better solution, which has eliminated the need of anything that ain't natural to the people, man. That's what I'm saying. So if you legalize one thing that cripples the community regardless, not because it sends them to jail and it's an economical standpoint, but because it affects them mentally and emotionally. That's the problem. That's why you commit crimes, because you're depressed, because you have a fix for this drug, whether it's legal or illegal.
Yeah, but it doesn't make a difference. If it's legal or illegal, how is that going to change whether people do it or not? And what you're saying, though, and I'll let you talk in a second, but what you're saying as far as going out and talking to people and getting them to stop on their own is a positive thing, and I agree with you on that. But whether they're legal or illegal has nothing to do with the fact of whether people are going to do them or not. If you want people to stop them, it's not using force like the government does. It's talking to them like you're saying you're doing.
To the after effect, I'm talking to the solution. I'm talking to before the police can even intercept anything, that if we become righteous ourselves and there ain't no type of problem like that in the neighborhood, period, then that eliminates
right, but you can't force people. You can talk to them. You can tell them what it does to their lives. So how do you stop drugs is what I'm saying, because I thought you're telling me that you're going to do it by talking to people. You're going to talk to kids and say, hey, this is what it does to your life.
Initiatives. But let me ask you a question. What type of neighborhood, what type of environment did you grow up in?
I'm not going to talk about that on the air.
Oh. I mean, did you grow
I
up
don't need to talk about my neighborhood, like whatever. I lived in Las Vegas 14 years, and that's really all I got to say about it. I grew up in the Boston area, and, you know, I saw a lot of fucked up shit too. But I don't know how that's relevant to anything I'm talking about. My show is not where did I grow up at, and let me talk about my neighborhood and how many times I got in trouble or got in fights or got arrested or whatever. So, you know.
I ain't saying if you got arrested or not, but living and seeing it is
so what?
Different things. It's two totally different things.
You want to say, well, I grew up in this neighborhood, so you can't say drugs should be legal. My point is more. So if you want to keep arguing over this point, then, you know, I don't know if there's anything left to say. If you want to talk about what you're trying to do, then that's fine. Well, you're asking me what neighborhood were you from, because I grew up in the ghetto, so I know everything. I mean, if that's your point, then there's no point to talk about it.
Listen, bro, I'm going to tell you something. I can't tell you how life is in the suburbs if I never lived there. You feel what I'm saying?
You live in a suburb. Isn't Sandusky's 27,000 people?
I'm not saying you did, but you can't tell me how to fix the ghetto if you ain't live there, my dude.
You live in a suburb. Isn't Sandusky, it's 27,000 people.
I do now. I do. What you think? It ain't no ghetto, no crime, no drugs?
There's crime and drugs everywhere. I live in Las Vegas. How much crime is there? You know what? Again, if you want to argue about where people grew up, and I grew up in the ghetto, and I know about this and that, you know, there's no point to talk about it. If you want to talk about what you're doing and trying to change things, then that's fine. Otherwise, I mean, that's about it. All I got to do.
Bro. You psychoanalyzing a situation from a plight of people that you have no understanding about, because you don't live.
That's all I got, you know, really to say on this.
You make no sense, dude. All
right, that's all I got to say, man. Thanks for coming on. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I got to do with that, because it wasn't about, you know, having an argument with somebody or debating who, you know, one of the things that I do on the show is not to sit there and argue with people. And I know it's like, what if somebody disagrees with you? And that's fine. People can disagree with me and have a conversation. But when we're arguing and not really talking about the point, then what's the point? And he had asked me to come on the show. Initially, when he had come on, it was somebody that I know from Sandusky Cop Block had said, oh, this happened. Do you want to have him on? I'm like, sure. If something happened with the police, you know, I'll have him on. I mean, I don't have anything against him. He's an all right guy, but it's like, if we're going to argue about something and sit there and say, I know everything because I come from the ghetto, so I know this and know that, then that's fine. But this, I guess this isn't the platform then to talk about it on. There's probably better places to communicate that. I don't see really the point then to come on my show to talk about that stuff. Initially it was, you know, I wanted to bring up what had happened in the initial case, and I'll play that, and it was fucked up what happened. and he had, you know, I thought he did the right thing. He got it on camera. He handled it correctly as far as when they had asked him to get out of the car. And he, you know, they or not get out of the car, but that happened too. Actually, I'll play it because I still think what he had done, you know, I still agree with that and think that as far as trying to turn things around and be positive, I think that's so I guess this is what I was trying to get to, and this is what I was trying to get him to talk about was, you know, it sounded like, and this is what I didn't understand, because it sounded like his view was, look, I don't think drugs are good to be in the community. Okay, I understand that. And I want to talk to people and get them to stop on their own. But if you're sitting there and saying, well, we need to stop this, well, how are you going to stop it? And if you're talking about using force and having drugs be illegal, and nothing there to say that, okay, well, with they're illegal, they're still in the community. It's contradicting it. So if you're saying they're illegal, they're still in the community, how are you going to get them out? And they're legal, what's the difference? And you look at all statistics in Colorado, and yes, I didn't grow up in a ghetto, but I didn't grow up in a nice place neither. You know, I wasn't gang banging or anything like that. I mean, there were a lot of fights, and that was probably, you know, the how far it went. But I knew a lot of fucked up people, and it was right outside of Boston. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how, if you're seeing what's going on and seeing that, okay, and I understand, you know, a lot of the things that are going on in certain communities, and probably looking at that is frustrating. And if you are looking to improve something and trying to go out and talk to people, and that's great. I think if that's what he's doing, which I'm still not clear on, I think that's great. I think if he's going out and saying, look, I fucked up and did this stuff. Now, I want to talk to people and tell them that, you know, what I did was wrong and you shouldn't do this, then that's fine. But if you're going to use violence, meaning law, police, to stop people from doing something, or that's your change, then I have a serious problem with that. Now, I don't know that that's what it is. Because again, I think the way, if you want to stop people from doing drugs, and this may be what he's doing, but if you want to stop people from doing drugs, the way I would do it, and the way that I think is parallel with or not parallel, but complies or there's a word I'm looking for that I can't think of, but is goes along with the ideas of freedom. It's to go out and tell people that drugs are bad. Tell people don't fuck up your life. Talk to people and get them to do it on their own, not to pass laws. But again, I don't even know what the whole goal or point there was. If it was okay, that's what I'm doing, or what. And, you know, I could have just went when he went into that and just not said anything. I can't have people on the show and have them put the shit out there that I'm totally against and not say nothing just because, oh, well, you know, I got to be nice or whatever. I'm not going to be mean and like call people names or anything like that. I mean, I'm not mad. I don't have a problem like that or anything. But on the other side of it, I'm not going to let you, you know, sit there and spout what I would call, you know, bullshit based upon the fact that you live that life. So, because the other thing is, and this is what I was trying to bring up, but you have blinders on. When you look at things that way, you grow up a certain way, you're looking at it exactly like, you know, your conditioning or how you grew up kind of taught you to look at it. And that's the whole thing as well. So after that, I'm going to take a quick break. That was probably my first like argument on the air, really. Well, I guess I had some trolls call up, but I didn't really argue with them because they were just trolls. It was kind of funny. But again, the show is about promoting the ideas of freedom. That's what it's about, and liberty, true freedom and liberty. Not arguing with people, not showing the status view, not to say that, well, I'm not fair, I'm trying to suppress that view. No, you can get that view everywhere. You can get that on government media every fucking day on a bunch of different channels. So I don't need to sit there and promote that. Now, again, if somebody calls in and they have a view that's different with mine, I'll let them state their view if they're actually talking about it and whatever. And I was letting them talk about it. It's just by the end there, it's just got to the same shit. And then it's like, well, now I'm going to attack. I'm going to say that you can't say whether drugs should be legal or not. You have no right to say that because you didn't grow up in the ghetto. Or where did you grow up? What experience did you have? I probably know more people that fucking OD'd than, well, maybe not more, but I know a lot of people that OD'd as well. So off of heroin. Especially a lot of my brother's friends. I know a lot of people that did drugs. And so, I mean, what is that? That doesn't give me, you know, it's like somebody whose kids gets killed by gun violence or whatever, that now somehow they have more of a right to say whether guns should be legal or not. And I don't think anybody has, anybody's opinion's more valid. The only difference between my opinion is you want to tell me what to put in my body as well as everybody else. If you take that view, if you're saying that they should be illegal, you want to use
tactic.
Yeah, but I said, well, that's exactly what the government is based on. It's all based on the threat of violence and threat of force. But so when they had pulled you over, from what I recall, that they even fucked up what had happened, where first they said it was about not having the lights on, but then somebody else, and the other officer said it was about her plates or something.
Yep, and then I fit the description of somebody with warrants, and then the baby's going to jail, and oh man, it was so. See, what my video did, it made people realize how much of a script that the police use to do whatever it is they want to do. And if you watch the police misconduct that happens, it seems like 90% of the time it's patrol officers. See what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's though because that's all you see, because the patrol officers are what they're catching on video.
No, that's not because it's all you see. That's because they're
is in the U.S. It is crazy, and there is a jail culture, which is something I talk about a lot. But just to for everybody to understand what had happened, that when you talk about not telling him who you are, and I'd seen some interviews with you by other people, and I had thought that you were being like too, not nice, but that, you know, you have the right to not have to show your ID.
Right.
So, I mean, to even need an explanation, well, why didn't you do it? Well, because I don't have to. There's all these things that people will say, well, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And how far are you going to go? It's standing up and saying, look, man, you don't have the right to just fucking pull me over and harass me and ask me who I am. So you didn't have any obligation to comply. Now, I think with a lot of things, you don't have an obligation to comply, but what they'll do is they use the threat of force. So most people will comply because they don't want to get killed or they don't want to get put in jail. But let me bring Andre on the air. Andre, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, thanks for joining us. So I want to, for people that aren't familiar with what happened, to go through that first, just not in too much detail, but to kind of give a summary of what had happened. And when was this? Was it September or October? Or I don't remember. I know it wasn't that long ago, but
it was October 1st.
It was October, okay. And you had come on the show like a week or so after that. So, yeah, just give a summary of what had happened with the police there in Sandusky, Ohio.
Well, we have a lot of issues all across the country, man, dealing with the state of the police. So, for a moment, I would like to erase the idea of me being a black man and him being a white cop. Main reason why I want to do that, because I got some white partners that they do this too. So, we were pulled over, and the guy actually believed that for the simple fact of you can only oppress a certain race of people for so long till it becomes not beneficial to everyone. So now what it is everybody is subject to the government's control of everything that they do. It's not just black people anymore, man. It's everybody. And I think the sooner everybody realizes the police state is to generate income. It's called The New Jim Crow. You know what I'm saying? I'm reading that book right now. It's to generate income by any means necessary. You know what I mean? I love this nonpartisan liberty for all thing because it makes so much sense, because I think the institution of police makes absolutely no sense if the people understand what human nature is all about. I think we control, it's crazy the numbers of the people we got in prison in the United States of America. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's and we'll get into to some of those details, but yeah, there's something like 25% of the world's population.
He already knew who I was, but wanted to investigate. So he says in the video.
Just to interrupt. You were talking to him, as if I recall correctly. You were having a conversation with him like 5 minutes or 10 minutes prior to that, before you had gotten in the car, and yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the whole reason why when he asked me what my name was, you know what I'm saying, I told him I'm not answering none of his questions, because for one, I had the right to not answer none of his questions. Because for what he was trying to do was trying to incriminate me, because he already had a story made up talking about he thought I was somebody else. But the last time I was arrested, he was the arresting officer. He knew exactly who I was. You know, I don't live in a large city. I live in a small town. It's only about same size as Ferguson, actually, 27,000 people here. You know, same demographic makeup. You know, so it's a system. You know, I want people to understand, man. We dealing with a systematic oppression. I really wholeheartedly